My name is Dikabo. I hold PhD in chemistry. I'm a lecturer at the University of Botswana, and I'm also involved in several research professions, like research professional organizations like the Botswana Academy of Science, where I'm the Deputy Secretary General, and I'm also the Deputy Secretary General the Secretary General for the Organization of Women in Science for Developing World, Botswana chapter. And I am a mother of two wonderful boys and married to Sam. My expectation, I think I sort of expected a rigid, solid classroom environment where you are trained following a certain pattern. But when I got to ASLP, I found that the environment was welcoming and innovative and was not just cast on one direction. There was a lot of flexibility in that. The environment dictated the pace, dictated how the setup would be. So I think it was quite surprising for me, especially coming from the science field where there's a bit of rigidity, a bit of methodology, to go into an environment which is quite innovative but yet effective. My ASLP fellowship, I think I would describe it the same way that I did after the very first workshop. I said that I think it provided for me a sacred place compared to my other science programs that I have been involved in. There was a lot of connectedness or connecting amongst fellows, and there was a lot of transparency in our parts, especially given that in the science environment, or in the environment that I work in, we are result driven, and there's not sufficient time, or the environment sometimes is competitive, and it is also such that we just connect at should I say, for lack of a better word, at a shallow level, no, on the surface, let me put it that way. So this one allowed for us to connect deeply, especially that I think through our career paths, we carry a lot of bruises, either from continuous working, continuous delivering, or sometimes working in somewhat toxic environment, sometimes working in a culture where you don't necessarily to reflect. So I think for me, ASLP gave me an environment where I was not just a machine that generates results. I was just a human being, and it gave me an environment where I felt that it was more on the building side, holistically, not just academically, but in all areas. ASLP had many memorable moments. There isn't a particular one that stands out, but out of the moments that I think I can talk about is the moment of where we were doing a lesson for deferring judgment, and we're using a painting. I won't go into details about that because it would otherwise not surprise the other people who participate on it. But I think it is very important, especially that as scientists, we are trained to be critical thinkers. And as critical thinkers, oftentimes we put on the shoes of a judge rather than the one who defers judgment. Immediately when someone speaks, when students speaks, when people present, you are thinking of, is the presentation well packaged? You are looking for, loopholes. You are also asking scientific questions. So in that regard, the training somewhat sort of set us to be judged. judgmental. And in that exercise, it was teaching us to be more open-minded, to defer judgment, so that we can allow for all the ideas to be welcome at the table. I would like to think that the models that have been used have been, rather we have been taught on, have been very useful for me in many ways. First of all, while we were doing the ASLP workshop, there was one thing that we also taught, the Ikigai, the philosophy of Ikigai, which talked to purpose, passion. I can't remember the other two, a vocation, I think, and then profession. And it was emphasizing that for us to be fulfilled and for us to reach that center, that point where there's complete fulfillment of purpose, we need to be at the center of that. So I did realize that for me, it was skewed more towards volunteering, and I was shifting away from wealth creation. And in ASLP, I learned that it is important also that doing should create wealth for you, so that you are fulfilled and you don't become a bitter person. And in that regard, I began to look at my tasks differently, even though I still volunteer, but I still ask myself, is this moving me towards creation of wealth? Is this helping me to build something for the future? So I have taken up tasks now. It's small steps that I'm moving towards, but I think sometimes in an academic environment, because there's a lot of volunteering, we demonize wealth creation. And I think it changed my mindset in that way. And then the other thing that I also feel has greatly helped me is the PPCO model, where the idea is taken through the pluses, the positives, concern, and overcomes. I've used that with my students, especially in courses where there isn't a template, that, like the one that I was currently teaching on applied analytical chemistry. So in that course, we look at current trends, we look at such that the students also, the students' interests are factored in, the lecturer students are factored in, and then you design the course. What are you going to be thinking about in that particular semester? So for me, that helped me rather to be able to bring on board, to look at the pluses, to look at the concerns, to go over them, and eventually create something that we can follow as a class. At a personal level, that has also helped me in that I was able to, like, sometimes this year, I looked at my son's bucket list. I took the liberty of reading it. I came across it. And then afterwards, I sat him down and asked him, so what do you think about this one? So we went on the pluses, the positives, the concern, and the overcomer. So really, it's a tool that cuts across through from personal life to a professional life to all areas of life. So I think the one thing that I appreciate is that the tools are not just for use, for utilization in a professional setup. You can use it in many areas. We know that Africa is challenged with leadership. From governance, we know that there is political instability. We also know that Africa is facing challenges in terms of corruption. And it is important that as science leaders, we must answer the question, who is, and like, what are the characteristics of an African science leader? And to me, an African science leader should be able to move ideas from being self-serving to the world, being able to move ideas from the lab to the world, so that the ideas are more impactful at a bigger scale rather than at a small scale. But at the same time, you must appreciate that leadership starts where you are. So before you even go to the world, before you even upscale, you must impact those who are around you. So being an African science leader talks about impact, talks about solving the problems that Africa is facing, And that also can come as a result of our ability to communicate. So one of the things that we were taught while we were at Africa Science Leadership Program workshop was science communication. Most of the time as scientists, we communicate amongst ourselves. And for us to be able to make the impact that I'm talking about, we must be able to communicate to powers, we must be able to communicate to policymakers, we must also be able to communicate to citizens. So being an African science leader means that you can bring impact, but you must also be able to communicate. And then the other thing that an African science leader must also become is to be versatile. Versatility in that you are not rigid, perhaps in your discipline. We often work as individuals, or maybe not necessarily as individuals, we work within our disciplines. But if we are to affect or to make an impact, we need to be able to work across disciplines. Multidisciplinary approaches are required. We need to be able to bring other team members whose impact we don't immediately see, so that ideas are cutting across many disciplines. The message that I have for the science community as ASLP celebrates its 10th anniversary is that I know there are many networks in the science community that start off with a big vision and a big purpose. However, sometimes along the way they disintegrate. I want to believe that ASLP has also faced challenges. So I want to encourage the science community that all those efforts that you are doing towards building young scientists, towards building future leaders, they are not in vain. So even if you have financial challenges, if your network are experiencing financial challenges, keep on knocking at doors. And beyond the scientific community, I would also want to address the public to say that such initiatives need your support financially and also in terms of advocacy. So if we have platforms where you can advocate for such initiatives like this, please do go ahead and do that. Sacred.